I say, first of all, I mean, the two-state idea is ridiculous. But as I tell my, and sorry if that's offensive to anybody who wants two states, I shouldn't say it that way. For me, as a Sephardic Jew, when I look at my history and I look at the history of how Sephardic Jews lived in the world and Sephardic opposition there was Sephardic opposition. So Jews who were kicked out of Spain, ended up in the Ottoman Empire and all over the Middle East, and ended up in what was modern day, what was Palestine under the Ottoman Empire, and still remains in what became Israel. And those of us who, the Sephardic Jews that didn't end up in Palestine, that there was that opposition to Zionism as being an ethnocratic, a Jewish state alone. That is a very European concept. That idea of being in a place that is not multicultural, multi-faith, multi-ethnic, multi-whatever is the European nation state concept. I mean, and you can see what's happened through colonization that happened to countries, you can see what's happening to Turkey. I mean, this idea of this ethnocratic, this one, rather than being multicultural. And I was just doing a talk to my 11th graders, talking to them about the Islamic empires and then the Ottoman Empire. And yes, there are advantages and disadvantages, but they were so struck by the examples of what was happening in, like for instance, in Salonika and Istanbul and in Jerusalem during the time of the Ottoman Empire. And then when nationalism really took over as the force to be able to define who you are. And that nationalism in its core is really a concept that is about isolating people from one another and creating homogeneity. And I'm not interested in that. And I do feel like my entire, it is a little hard to be in a relationship. I mean, being a Jewish person in this movement, when I'm a minority Jewish person in this movement, and my concepts of how to be are very different. It's hard to explain that and also like really try to build it now. Like it's not just this is useful for an activism moment. I actually am interested in building those relationships now. So why do we have coalitions with, why are there Jewish people who are like Jews of color and also white Jews who are in coalition with people of color and with Palestinians, and that's the world we want to build, and we step on each other's toes also. So when I think about like what would a one state like really actually look like, and I will never forget Palestinian colleague Nora Erekat has talked about this, where she said, if there were two states, once you have that state of Palestine, she would be one of the first people who's working to oppose how Palestine becomes like a nationalist, all the ways that nationalism messes people up. So I think even if we say this ideal, even if I say an ideal is one state where there's, equality for all, there's the idea of the right of return is actually addressed and completed, that there's compensation for the harms that have been done over time, that there's a recognition that everybody in this state is now protected. I don't know how to untangle all the pieces, but I'm absolutely for that kind of justice. And I don't know what that means for me with a state like that. And it's kind of irrelevant for me to have the conversation, other than the fact that I'm Jewish and people constantly tie me to this place. Whereas if you ask what my diaspora is, I would say I actually think it's more like the Isle of Rhodes or, what's modern day Turkey. But I don't get to make those associations. I don't get to have my self-determination the way that I want it. It's being formed for me. So I feel like even saying the one state all of a sudden reties me newly, like I'm trying to like detie myself, but it reties me newly to a region that I long for, to look differently and feel differently and have some of the history at the same time. And this is very much about me. Like you asked it and I'm talking about me, but I'm also trying to think about the issues of justice and then what questions it raises as a result of that.